I want to discuss a scene that you've cited as a particularly strong, example of your work, and it's the justifiably legendary scene now of Ted picking Mary up from the prom. Ted, played by Ben Stiller, and Mary, played by Cameron Diaz.
Based on a true story. It started when our sister was in 4th or 5th grade. She had a little birthday party at the house, and one of the kids, the cool kid in class, his name was Irene. Al, if you're out there, sorry to bust you, but he went into the bathroom, didn't come out. 45 minutes, and finally my parents were like, "Hey, what's the matter with that guy?" So they knocked on the door, and they went in, and sure enough, he was all mangled up there. He had actually closed it on himself. And like I said, my father's a doctor, mother's a nurse, so they worked him out of there and got him home. And they never mentioned it to anybody, and it was probably 20 years later that we were at Thanksgiving, and my father said, "Hey, remember the time the kid got his weenie stuck in the zipper?" We're like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Oh yeah, at a party." And they told us the story, and we just thought it was so funny. So we had that to start with.
And we knew that we wanted to create a situation in the story where Ben Stiller's character gets there and does something that that really embarrasses him, and we're like, well, what can he do? And then we thought, well, what about, remember the kid zipped himself up? How about if he does that? We didn't know if it would work,
right.
But
so first you knew you wanted to work in something embarrassing for Ted, and then you drew from that story to use for that role.
We kind of worked our way backwards. We're thinking, well, why does it happen then? And we're thinking, well, and we work it out, well, what could have happened? And we thought, well, what if he's looking out the window? And we were thinking, we had actually talked once, wouldn't it be funny if one time somebody was looking at birds, it wasn't in a room, but we said, they're just staring at these birds and they fly away, and you push in on somebody behind them that thinks they're staring at them or whatever. So we used that. And actually, the real reason that works well is because, you have the firemen, you have the cops, and you have all that stuff. That was pretty much accidental because we had the guys the guy who played the police officer was
that's Steve Sweeney.
Steve Sweeney, who's a stand-up comic in Boston. Lenny Clark played the fireman. And we had wanted to get both those guys in the movie because they're friends of ours. They're local comics in Boston. They're legends in Boston, these guys. And we wanted to get them in, and we only had one role, which was, I think a cop came in, or a fireman. And we thought, well, wait a second. Why don't we just split that role up? We'll get them both. And we were doing it just sort of to get these guys in. But as it turned out, it really helped us because it let the thing kind of build. And that was sort of unintentional.
Yeah, when we're shooting it, too, on the day that we're shooting it, it's hard to tell if it's going to be as funny as we hope it is because it takes all day, and a lot of it's about the way it's edited and all that. I remember the last thing we did was we brought out a guy had made a prop. It was probably like 6 feet tall, and it was a giant zipper with the scrotum and everything like protruding from it, coming out the zipper. And we're bringing it over to a guy. We're bringing it in. We'll film it, and the people on the crew were like, "What? You're not gonna film that, are you? Like, why would you?" It's funny to think about. We're like, yeah, I know it is, but maybe they don't think we're gonna show it. So let's, we figured it won't hurt to us to have it. We probably will end up cutting before we show it. I think that was our understanding at the time. Right. Is that that's probably going too far, but we edited it in order, and each time we showed it, it got funnier and funnier. When they finally showed the thing, it was hysterical.
Well, the idea,
so we never took it out.
So it just escalates and escalates, which is great.
One thing that worked, and by the way, a lot of this stuff's accidental. You don't really plan it, but then you look back and you're like, oh yeah, you know why that was good? Because of this, which is, we didn't show it for so long that the audience at first probably thought, oh, they're going to show this. And then after a while, obviously they're not going to. So by the time we did, they'd let their guard down, and I think it kind of snuck up on people.
Where did Franks and Beans come from?
I do actually remember Bob coming up with that one, and we don't remember. I just remember you saying that.
Really? You know what? I never remember who
Were there alternatives, or was it always Franks and Beans?
No, it was in the script.
We had that one in the script. A lot of it comes up on the day, but I think that one was in the script.
Yeah.
Does mining from your real lives ever get you in trouble with people?
We had one guy. We put a lot of our friends' names in movies. And there was a guy who we knew who he was an acquaintance of ours in LA. He'd come out to be an actor. It didn't work out. He moved back home. And we just liked his name.
He had a distinct name.
He had a great name, and he was a nice guy. And so we thought, hey, let's call the guy this. That's a good name. So we actually, we were driving past where he worked. He was working at some place, and we pulled in and we said, "Hey, listen, we're thinking of using your name in this movie. You cool with that?" He said, "Absolutely, I'd be flattered." So we used his name. The movie came out, did really well, and then we got a phone call one day like, "Hey, man, where's my paycheck?" I'm like, "What? What are you doing?" And he's like, "Look, man, everyone else got paid. You used my name. You got mileage out of my name." I was like, so that was the only time it ever came back where, it was very irritating because we did it just sort of, we do that for friends, and the guy ended up like kind of milking the studio for a couple bucks.
Oh no. Yeah. On that scene, going back to that scene for a second, did anything get, in terms of the escalation, did any details get added during shooting that weren't written first? Do you ever do that?
Yeah,
oh, definitely,
all the time.
Yeah. I'm not sure that, like, I know in that scene in the bathroom with, Marky Post has the spray and all. I'm not sure all that was in there, was it?
No, I think
Maybe it
as
was,
we're
but-
going along, someone says, "Hey, what if they put Bactine on it or something?" And like, "Oh yeah, does anybody have a you get a thing?" As a director, you probably, you think your script's perfect when you start a movie, but it's really probably 70% there, and you've got to bring that other 30%. You don't know what that is until you're shooting and you see it happening and you're realizing this isn't funny. We've got to tweak this somehow, bring it up, make it better. And that's when you got to be quick on your feet. You've got to come up with stuff. And you also have to give the actors the freedom to come up with stuff. We always tell our actors, we ask you to please do the script first, and then you'll have takes, and we want them to come up with stuff. And they always do. Like, Brett Favre, that was just an ad lib by, Ben, where you're like hysterical. That's not in the script. There's a lot of stuff like that. Like, pretty much Bill Murray's entire performance in Kingpin was ad libbed. He would look at the sides every day, the pages we were going to shoot, and he'd go like, I remember the first day he showed up, I said, "This is what we're doing." He says, "Yeah, I get it." And he throws it aside, and then never said one word on that script, but it was 10 times better what he came up with. Now, you hope most actors don't do that, but Bill Murray,
Right.
he's the one guy who get away with it.
Now you mentioned you like to come across ideas or even other screenplays and take them on as rewrites and kind of make it your own. Have you ever done rewrite work just as script doctors and on movies where you didn't make it your own or didn't direct?
We did it before we were getting movies made. A lot.
Yeah, what? I think that's actually, of all the things we do, is probably our biggest strength, is that we can look at a script and feel like we can say with pretty degree of certainty where it's flawed and where it could be better, and we've just been lucky that way. We can see the whole structure, like something wrong with that ending, it's too predictable, or something like that. We can kind of sum it up quickly and feel like we have ways of making them better.
That was our bread and butter for many years. We got out to LA in 1985, and we didn't have a movie made till '94. And during those 9 years, we were never unemployed, because we do have that strength. When someone wanted to do a rerun on a script, they'd send it to us. We come and say, "Well, this and this and that." And we were getting hired all the time. And here's a fun fact. I don't think this has ever been announced, and I hope he's not mad at me for saying it. But Bob and I did a rewrite, and Quentin Tarantino did a rewrite on the same script at different times. We completely rewrote the script. He completely rewrote the script. And that movie was It's Pat.
Oh my God.
That's the God's honest truth.
That's got to be the only case of a crossover with that guy.
Yeah, but of all movies,
Of
it's
all
Pat.
movies, yeah.
Yeah, so luckily our names didn't end up on it.
You know what, though? Even on our scripts now, we always, every script can get a little better. So before we go out and shoot whatever we have, we do a thing called tabling, where we bring in 5, 6, 7 guys that are comedians, funny guys, writers, and we'll sit down for anywhere from, a day to a week, and go through that script, line by line, and say, is there any way to make it even this much better? Is there anyone have any idea? So that's a big part of what we do, and it makes a big difference.
Does anyone ever make it from the tabling to the screen in terms of like people you get to show up for the table read? Have you ever pulled from that for the casting ultimately?
Oh yeah, yeah, we do that a lot actually. We always use Jeff Ross, the stand-up comic, who's one of the funniest men on the planet. We try to get him for the punchlines, because he's the guy. He'll sit there all day, he'll be talking about everything but the script, and all of a sudden he'll throw out one hysterical line, and you end up using it. When you do a table, we have 5, 6, 8 guys there, and if you're getting one joke a day, just one good joke a day, then in that week you get 5 new jokes for the script.
Totally worth it.
It's worth it. And so we take a lot of those guys like Jeff, and we throw them a bone. Yeah.
Yeah, Jackie Flynn, and a bunch of the guys that they end up getting into the movie.
Yeah.
Do you ever still do kind of rewrite work in between directorial efforts?
I don't think so.
No.
We don't know.
Have you ever had reservations about taking on one of those jobs? Even in the past, in terms of something someone's brought you?
Someone brought me the script once. It got made. It was called Senior Trip. Was that at New Line?
I'm not commenting.
Okay. Senior Trip.
Did I bring that to you?
I don't remember who brought that to us. I don't remember it being you, but I remember Senior Trip. I read that script and I thought, this is hysterical. They should shoot it. And I went in. I didn't know the writers. The writers, it was Roger Cumble and what's her name?
Marlene King.
Marlene King.
Marlene, yeah.
Roger and Marlene, and we didn't know them, but I went into the meeting. I said, you know what, guys, don't do it. Don't rewrite it. This is hysterical. It's one of the funniest things I've ever read. And I think they actually did rewrite it. I don't remember what happened. And I know the movie didn't turn out as good as the script. But we were at a meeting once at Fox, and we had some ideas for a script, and we said, well, we would do it this way. I said, I think the main character can be a lot funnier. And I remember the director was in the room. He said, I think the main character's pretty funny. I said, yeah, he's funny, but I think he'd be a lot funnier. And what we want to do is, he said, but hold on. I just don't know if we want to mess with that. He's pretty funny. I said, yeah, but we can make him funnier. He said, but I don't know if we want to. I said, listen, would you be mad if your lead in this comedy were funnier? He's like, well, no, I just don't want to mess with it. I said, okay, you know what? You guys, I wouldn't even want to do this because you guys have a way of doing it. And by the way, you may be right. Your way, I don't know. This is just the way we do it, so we'd rather not do it. But good luck. So we left, get home, phone ringing. You got the job. I'm like, you kidding me? I don't want the job now. That kind of stuff happened every now and then.
Is that what you were brought on generally to do during that period of time, kind of make things funnier? Or what was the thing they called you guys for during that 9-year period?
Yeah, they were looking for it to get funnier. We had done a couple rewrites on scripts that didn't get made, but that people were, Dragnet 2. Dragnet, there was Dragnet, and then there was Dragnet 2.
Yep. Well, they didn't make it, though.
No.
Well, we wrote it.
We wrote it from scratch, right?
Right.
We wrote it from scratch with Bennett Yellen. And it was really a very funny script, and then Tom Hanks didn't want to do it, and the whole thing fell apart. But stuff like that.
What a mistake he made, huh?
Yeah, he really messed up.
He'll never recover.
Yeah. But like scripts like that would float around, and people would say, "Oh, these guys are funny. Let's come in."
Did you write many unproduced screenplays before getting the first one produced? Were there a lot of those screenplays?
Yeah, we had probably written about 8 or 9 that couldn't or wouldn't, weren't getting made, and we eventually got frustrated enough to the point where we thought we better try to raise some money ourselves and make one independently. Raise $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever we thought it would cost to make a small movie. And the one we picked was Dumb and Dumber. And then everything kind of took off.
I think
from
it was
there.
more, to tell you the truth, more like 14 or 15. 14 or 15 scripts.
Oh.
It wasn't 8 or 9. There were a lot of scripts back then. I got to say this. A lot of them shouldn't have been made. I look back and, at the time you're thinking this is a masterpiece, and you see the movies that are out and you're like, why are those getting made and not mine? But I look back now and I thank God that a lot of those did not get made because we got better every year. We had to. We were like, I knew if we didn't get better, we were going to be out of this business. I was afraid someone was going to write a story someday about us, like guys who have worked for the longest time without getting a movie made. And people would say, yeah, why are we hiring them? So we pushed ourselves because we felt like we're lucky to be in the game. And we did get better, and it was a blessing that Dumb and Dumber was our first movie, as opposed to having 3 pieces of crap before that.
Do you feel like you get better as your career gets longer and you get older and do more movies? Is that something that happens naturally?
I don't know. A lot of people say Dumb and Dumber was our best movie. That was our first one. It's all the writing. And when we were younger, we were writers. That's all we did. We were screenwriters. We met every day and wrote screenplays. And now there's a lot of other things going on. People come to us with scripts, and you're meeting actors and actresses and doing all that stuff that is all fun, but it's not the nuts and bolts of writing a good screenplay. So I think it's really just that we either don't have the time or the or the time and energy to write what we used to write.
Well, that leads me to my next question, which is, given the time constraints now, how much of a priority is discipline in your writing schedules or just in your writing process? Is it more or less than in earlier days?
Well, when we do get together and write, it's not that much. We probably write once a year for a couple months. We work better when we would always take a trip. We'd go somewhere and lock ourselves in a hotel for a week or two and really grind it out. I have a hard time writing 2 to 4 or 6 hours a day. I'm not really into it. I need to be to the point where I'm sitting there eating and my wife's like, "You didn't hear a word I said." I've got to throw myself completely into it for it to be good.
What was Dust to Dust? Can you tell us what happened with that?
Yeah, Dust to Dust was the first script I ever wrote. I wrote that with Bennett Yellen. I had gone to UMass Amherst creative writing program, and then I transferred to Columbia. But I met Bennett at UMass, and we stayed in touch. And one time we thought, we'd been in grad school for about 2 years. He was working on short stories. I was writing a novel. And it occurred to us two things. First of all, we knew our strength was our dialogue, both of ours. We had the exact same sense of humor. But also we started to think, this book writing stuff could take forever. And what do you get? You can't make a living at it. You got to hope you get a job teaching, which was fine. That's all I wanted at the time. But the chances are I wasn't going to get that. We thought we should write a screenplay. Maybe we can make a couple bucks. And we got together over 2 or 3 weeks. He came up to New York. I went down back up to Amherst. And we kicked off this screenplay. Dust to Dust was basically, that was the seed of Dumb and Dumber. It was the same 2 guys. And they were 2 guys, morons, who worked at a down-and-out funeral parlor. And this place had layaway sales, that kind of thing, yeah. And they were just, screw-ups, and they were driving around. What happened? They picked up a coffin. Somebody had died out of the country, and they picked it up, and it turned out somebody was smuggling cocaine into the thing, Dust to Dust. And they got into this whole drug ring, and it was pretty funny. We wrote it in about 3 weeks. And simultaneously, I was seeing this girl who lived next door to Eddie Murphy in Alpine, New Jersey. I was just dating her. And I mentioned to her, I'd written the script. She said, "Oh, I'm dying to meet Eddie. Give me the script. I'll go over and give it to him. I just want to go over there." I was like, "Great." So I gave it to her. And Bennett's Bennett's sister was taking Hebrew dance classes with David Zucker of the Zucker brothers, believe it or not.
Explain Hebrew dancing classes.
I guess they go and they learn how to Hebrew dance. It's a group of people on Tuesday nights.
Right.
And so he gave it to his sister. She gave it to David Zucker. I gave it to this girl. She gave it to Eddie Murphy. And at the exact same time, within a day, we got a phone call. First of all, you get a phone call. David Zucker called, said, "Hey, listen, I really like this. You guys come on out here. We got some ideas." And then, I'm, riding high, I'm watching Letterman that night, and Eddie Murphy's on TV, and he's talking about, "Man, my neighbor gave me a screenplay. It's really great. I'm going to do it." He mentions the name of it. I'm sitting there, "You got to be kidding me." So I called the girl. The girl, it turned out her family had gone on vacation in Europe. So, and I hadn't even put my number on the thing, so Eddie didn't know how to get in touch with us. Anyway, next thing you know, they flew us out to LA and been here ever since.
Where does your interest in writing handicapped characters into some of the later films, where did that come from?
They're funny. No. We grew up with a bunch of, for whatever reason, we happen to know a lot of disabled people. We had a couple of what they call mentally...
We grew up near a nuclear reactor.
You grew up in Chernobyl.
We had a couple kids in the neighborhood who back then they called retarded. And we also had a good friend who was a quadriplegic who broke his neck in high school diving. And so we were around people with disabilities. When we played hockey on a pond next to our house, there was one of the kids was about 30, and he was a lot older than us. He wasn't 30, but he was a lot. We were 10. He was probably 17, 18, and he was intellectually challenged, and we were very comfortable around people with disabilities. So it seemed, we have no problem putting them in. We know them, and also people weren't putting them in. And what happens is, and Mary, when her brother's mentally challenged, to us is, I mean, that's like a cheap way of getting the crowd on your side, you know, that someone's picking on that guy and that our guy stands up for him. I mean, it's really kind of like cheap, you know. And then we started using other people. And what happens is there's a group called Media Access in Los Angeles, and they represent people, actors with disabilities. And they started calling, hey, thanks for using these people. They were giving us awards and saying, you know, you're the only people that had a, you know, mentally challenged guy in a mainstream movie, and the only guy in a, you know, a guy in a wheelchair in a mainstream movie. And next thing you know, we were suddenly involved in this group, and we're going to their annual meetings, and we're meeting all these people, and suddenly they're looking to us saying, keep it up, please. So we kind of got in a position where we had a gun to our heads. And they were saying, if you don't do it, no one will. And we just thought, all right. So we opened our doors to them and we started reading. What I always tell people is this. I have never read a script where it says, the girlfriend walks in the room and in parentheses, great eyesight. You know, or the girlfriend walks in the room, you know, she's excellent hearing.
Right.
And casting agents don't think to use people with any kind of disability. They just don't. And we thought,
unless it's in the script.
Unless it's pointed out. And so all we did was say, okay, through the Media Access office, when we cast a movie, we put the list out, and we're seeing people come in wheelchairs, and we're seeing blind people, and we're seeing deaf people, and we're seeing all kinds of people. And you know what? Some of them can act. And suddenly you're like putting 2 or 3 people in it, and people, to the point where when we did Fever Pitch, we sat down with them, and the producer said, no cripples.
No, literally no cripples?
Literally. Do you remember the first meeting? We're not doing that. I'm like, all right, you know. And no, it's such a big deal. But we do, you know, we just find that, you know, they can act, and why not? That's the way the real world is. There's a percentage of people who are disabled, so why not put them in?
So quite the reverse of ever having qualms or fears about it. You actually, it was almost like endorsed and
it was, but also, you know, the only people who ever criticized us for that were the press. And we would get letters from people, like a lot. We get letters from people about something about Mary. The press said it was really, like, I remember the Hollywood Reporter wrote, a guy who reviewed Stuck on You crushed us, saying our treatment of people with, you know, intellectual disabilities is horrible. And it was painful. I read that. I was like sick to my stomach about it. But you know what? We get letters from people that say, you know, I saw something about Mary, and I have a sister who's intellectually challenged, and I saw your movie and I realized, God, I don't spend enough time with her. I'm inspired to do more with her after seeing Mary's treatment of her brother in your movie. And only that kind of stuff. And the other thing is, by the way, just coincidentally, in the 80s, sometime in the late 80s, we got involved in a program called Best Buddies, which is a mentoring program for people with intellectual disabilities. And through that, we met a lot of people with intellectual disabilities. And we got very comfortable around them. And that was why when Ricky Blitt came to us with The Ringer, saying, you know, this guy tries to fix the Special Olympics, I immediately thought, oh, this can be really good, because people with intellectual disabilities have never been portrayed as, they're always the same, and they're always sad. They're always just, you know, pitiable. And they're not. You know, every time I'm with these guys, all you do is laugh, and you leave with a great feeling. And I wanted to make a movie where we loaded it up with people with intellectual disabilities, and you get uplifted from it. And there was not, I'm proud to say, I don't think there's a sad moment in The Ringer. And that's one of the most satisfying movies we ever made because of it.
Yeah, I remember the Special Olympics was always kind of behind it. It was never a case of anyone thinking, on that side, thinking it was objectionable or anything.
No, the people that are involved in it on that side, the Special Olympics, and people who have someone in their family with a disability, they're always in favor of it.
Do you think the discomfort just comes from from the outside world and people thinking, you know, I don't find this comfortable, so I'm going to project my discomfort onto the motivations for doing it?
It's always the people that aren't around it very much project their own discomfort.
And you know, it's very few people. You know, honestly, we've got a lot from The Ringer. I cannot remember one letter or phone call or anybody having anything but positive. People, you know, people who have family members who are challenged love that movie, and those kids watch that movie over and over and over, and it's empowering. And the great thing about it is this. You know, I showed it to Larry David, who, you know, you want to talk about funny people, there's nobody funnier than Larry David. And I wanted his input, and I showed him the movie. He said, I got to tell you, Pete, he said, I was 15 minutes in that movie, and I was squirming in my seat, like, oh no, what are they going to do here? And I walked out of there thinking, I wish I had friends like that. Wish I knew those guys. And that's
a great testament.
It's the greatest.
Have you guys ever pulled yourselves back from going too far in a movie? And as a result, it was funnier than the far out version? Have you ever pulled something back?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, we never know in advance exactly how far we can go, but we'll, you know, when we're shooting it, we'll go all the way, way that we think is funny.
What's an example of pulling back something?
In Dumb and Dumber, when Jim Carrey put the X-Lax into Jeff Daniels' drink, and then Jeff went over to pick her up, and he went in the bathroom, and we did go to the point where I think the audience was thinking they're not going to actually show him on the toilet. Well, we did show him on the toilet, you know, and it was quite graphic and all, but we actually had gone further where he took the toilet apart, he was dumping it out the window, and you know, it was making us laugh, but we felt like...
You could feel the audience like, okay, I've seen it, I get it. And I remember something about Mary, when Matt Dillon's checking Mary out with the binoculars, and he goes over and he sees the neighbor undressing by mistake, the older woman, Lynn Shay.
Mm-hmm. My ex-boss's sister.
Exactly. And at one point, we had a thing where she was lifting each breast and blow drying underneath them. And we thought it was hysterical, but the audience said, oh. Oh boy, I wish I hadn't seen that. So we cut that. Now, it happens all the time. We don't know what that line is until the audience tells us. That's why people say, do you feel bad you pushed it too far? I said, no, we didn't push it too far. We pushed it as far as the audience let us push it.
Because you've already been through that process and
We've
they've told
done it
you.
7 times, yeah.
Do you ever record funny conversations or just conversations in general to use later in the writing process, like literally record dialogue or people?
Definitely, you know, make notes of new expressions and, you know, names, nicknames, and, you know, things. I remember at the time we were in a pub on Cape Cod and some guy came in and, hey, Seabass, remember?
Yeah, he called the guy Seabass. I said, that guy's nickname's Seabass, so we wrote it down.
I hear Seabass all the time. Seabass has a life unto itself.
Yeah, but at the first time we heard it, we're like,
that was a real guy.
Man, that's a good nickname, huh? Yeah, I got, you know, so Seabass becomes a character, and then it's like, yeah, you heard it somewhere.
So it's more just from memory that you pull
No, we
stuff
write
from?
them down. We actually write them down like on napkins. We don't use tape recorders.
Oh, on the scene,
we'll write it, scratch it right down, and I collect. I have notebooks full of that stuff. Honestly, I'm not exaggerating. I probably have 40 or 50 notebooks full of those things. And when we get blocked up or we get, you know, and it's we're a little confused, I flip through the notebooks and I'll just see like an idea or a line, a funny line or a funny idea or just a good description. But yeah, we keep track of them.
Now you've mentioned the things you write down in your notebook, snippets of dialogue you overhear as you come across real life people. Do you ever come across any objects or anything, you know, aside from little snippets of dialogue that kind of inspire you to write scenes or stories? Like, you ever come across places or things that inspire you?
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example, but
people usually, you know, I like driving. Like I drive cross country a lot. I just, you know, gets me thinking, and I'm always going. That always inspires me. You just go through some little place.
yeah,
Get off.
remember we're going down south and the sign for Dirty Dick's Crab House.
Yeah, and
like 15 miles up on the left. We're really up, you know, in South Carolina somewhere on the back roads. Dirty Dick's Crab House. It shows Dirty Dick. He's got a butt hanging out of his mouth.
he hasn't shaved. It's like
there's flies. He's
got a pan of crabs and there's flies around it.
But it's 15 miles up on the left. I'm like, oh, we got to go to Dirty Dick's.
And they make you work to get there, which is great.
Yeah.
15 miles up and to the left.
It'll probably end up in a movie someday, you know.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you like that kind of thing because we have a little screenwriting exercise for you that involves an object. Frederick, the tray for the guys. This is Frederick.
Oh, hey, Frederick.
How are you?
Hi.
And on this tray, there's an object. It's been chosen randomly by us, and the goal here is, once it's revealed to you, you make up a story about it, and then tell me the story, and then I will ask you why that particular story. You can give them their object.
Gentlemen, your object.
Oh, yeah.
You can feel free to take it, play with it.
Okay. There you go. Looks to be a little lion.
Just the one that you kind of let you go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this needs a little Viagra. I don't know. You want to run with this?
I got to tell you one thing. This is going to be a disaster because, you know, I always tell people, I say, you know, the reason we never did stand-up comedy is because we're funny about a half hour later. Like, on our way home, we're going to think of the best thing to tell you about
Just call
this.
in with it.
Yeah. Like, I always have the line, you know, on the way home from the date, oh, I wish I'd said that, you know, why didn't I do this when she, you know? Okay, so what do you got there, Bob?
Like if you were road tripping and someone threw that at your car and it's stuck on your windshield and you had to look at it, what would you think about it?
It's a little similar to us. No pride. There would be other ones of these around. I have no idea. I don't know what to make of it, Mike. I'm gonna have to pass.
That's okay. We've had that happen before.
Okay. What did Babalu and Lowell?
They went anecdotal. Babalu and Lowell. It was a pipe, and they talked about what it made them remember from their own lives.
Pipe?
Anecdotally. Well, a smoking pipe, not like a crack pipe.
Would have been easier. A
Yeah,
pipe
well, that
would
would've
have
stirred
been
some
way
memories.
easier. You know, there were things you could have given us that would have sparked things like a porno mag or, you know,
All right.
bong. Let me say, I don't know. I know we're going to come up with something tomorrow, but
I'm not so sure.
You did learn something about writing, though. That, you know, it isn't like that. It's
Right.
not like, you know.
It's not like acting or.
No,
yeah.
and it's not like we go out and everybody says, "Boy, they're the funny." You know, those guys are funny. We have to work at it. You know, I got to sit down and think, well, what's the funnier way of doing that? We're not just, you know.
Right.
You know, I remember going home like friends saying, "I don't remember you guys being that funny." Like, well, no, you're right. You know, it's actually writing. You know, you have to
Right.
sit there and you have to figure it out. We were never the class clowns.
Right.
You know, we weren't the guy that threw out the quip.
Right. Well, don't feel bad. It's not. No one's going to take it as an example of your fading talent.
Thank you.
No, but from what you described of your process, it's really interesting. Where even if you come across an object or a person that you see on a road trip or whatever, the way you bounce off each other and things escalate and you add and add and add, that must take time and it's not an instantaneous process, but it just kind of stews for a while and kind of.
It does, and it really isn't. You know, it's not like we're drawing everything from observation and from lines
Sure.
we overhear. You know, you got to sit.
More like accents, kind of, to your stories.
You got to sit down. Yeah, exactly. You got to sit down though, and you know, we'll layer in little things that you know we've thought of or somebody had mentioned. But you really have to sit down. And you have to kind of you write, invent, create.